rapidly changing market, we get asked a lot about domain expertise versus adaptability and resiliency and what skills leaders need coming into this new world that we're all operating in. And so one thing we are recognizing is the pace of change, which most leaders would agree with us. And I've seen a statistic that talks about the pace of change in the next 5 years is going to be greater than the previous 40 put together. And you add that to what they're seeing with the lifespan of a degree is 4 to 5 years, where in 1980 it was around 40 years that you could go to school, get a degree, and what you learned could really help you throughout your entire career. And what we're now seeing is students, leaders, right, are coming out of schooling, even MBA schooling, and they're seeing that they're kind of already out of date on some of the things they're needing to know. And so when you look at domain expertise versus adaptability and resiliency and some of these change-focused skills, we're seeing that the domain expertise is actually being slightly diminished because, again, that domain expertise likely has even changed, right, over the last 5, 7, 10 years. And so adaptability and resiliency is what we're looking for specifically in leaders right now, because they have to be able to help teams navigate a lot of chaos. They have to be able to help teams know that what we did last year or what we did to get the business in our department or division to this point is not going to get us to the next level. And that requires change. It requires some humility to say we don't have all the answers right now, but we have a smart team of people that are adaptable and resilient that are going to help us through that. And that's kind of the expertise that we're looking for in leaders, because that's what's going to prove successful as we move forward. One thing we're talking to our clients about is helping them understand how their domain expertise doesn't get in the way of them being able to develop as leaders and ensure their leaders are there to help drive change. Because sometimes when we have deep domain expertise, and we see this in academic degrees, right? Deep engineering, where you do need to be a subject matter expert. So there are certain areas where it still applies, but a lot of other areas, we're having leaders that are struggling to see people coming into their organizations with a lot more experience in a certain area than they had, because they're being taught at a different level. The level of domain expertise, right, is growing and changing at such a rapid pace. And so what we're working with leaders on is really around that conscious leadership. Servant leadership, a lot of people know it by, is to bring people in that are smarter than you. Just because someone has deeper domain expertise doesn't mean you can't still lead them and be a really successful leader in your organization, because what they need you for is they need you to help them navigate change. They need you to help them be resilient and learn adaptability in this rapidly changing environment. And so as a leader, we're having to help others step into the light, right, and step into their strengths. And at the same time, we're having to check our ego and our status and what used to make us really important, and realize now that our worth as senior leaders in organizations is helping them navigate change, is helping them through that chaos and crisis. And so we talk a lot about conscious leadership. And so the idea of conscious leadership is leadership that loves, cares, and respects its people. And leaders are really having to evolve and think differently about their leadership capabilities. And the things that used to make me maybe put up a front and try to figure out, like, fake it till I make it, is no longer a leadership approach that we want to use, because people see right through it. And when they see through that, they actually break down trust, which impacts culture. It impacts a lot of other things. And so conscious leaders are the ones that can come to the table and say, I don't know if I'm the best one to solve this problem, but here are some ideas. Here are some things we could consider. How can I support you guys in solving this customer issue, right? And solving this product issue that we're dealing with. You don't have to be the smartest one in the room as a leader. You just have to be the one that asks the right questions. So what is the future of leadership? We get asked that a lot by the leaders. What are you seeing that I need to do better at? How do I need to think differently? And we're also seeing it tie in with the conscious culture, with conscious leadership, and how is culture really playing into what we're doing here? And what I would say is conscious leadership is the foundation of any culture that you're trying to build or evolve. And as a conscious leader, your domain expertise is now shifting to really being the leader and the best leader you can be to help teams navigate change. So the domain expertise of, I really know how to create Excel spreadsheets, right? Or do really great marketing campaigns, which is what you got your degree in or what your background might be in, is now needing to focus on, I really know how to understand the strengths of my people. I know how to help them through the 5 stages of change. I know how to make them resilient even when we hit crisis or we hit chaos. And so when we think about the future of leadership, it's really in the soft skills, which are now considered the hard skills. And so leaders need to focus and put their energy just in a different place, which takes a lot of humility, because it's not so much about the worth of how smart we are, right? It's that transition from IQ to EQ that is really now the intelligence of conscious leadership and how leaders are going to be successful in the future. So what are some of the new skills as you think about leaders of the future and how that leadership requirements are evolving? So one thing we say all the time is that leaders have to be learners. Never be satisfied with what you've learned up to this point and thinking that all of that is going to carry you forward. And so that's really the difference in the new domain expertise, is the learning just looks a little different than maybe what you got your degree in or what you were super smart in for many, many years. Is your worth as a leader now is continuously learning about adaptability and resiliency, about things like conflict, right? It's the soft skills that are now the hard part of leadership, is how to keep high performance in people, how to keep them motivated and engaged, how to have difficult performance conversations in a productive way, right? We call it that healthy tension in an organization is where the best ideas come from, where people really step out of what they thought they knew and what they were capable of into something new. So the idea of adaptability is not only for the leaders themselves, but it's how do they create adaptability in others. So that growth mindset and thinking bigger and thinking differently than maybe what we were capable of in the past is what leaders are now expected to do. And so all of those skills are the foundation of a healthy culture. And that's why we talk about conscious leadership being the foundation of healthy culture, because we have to drive strong collaboration. And without collaboration, you have to have healthy tension in order to collaborate. We have to drive a clarity of vision. And the only way we drive a clarity of vision is if we're really strong at communication and we know how to articulate for a unique group of people what their enhancement to that vision is and how they support it and really help it move forward. So there are so many of these skills that aren't created in a vacuum anymore. They're not just an expertise that you hold to yourself. All of the domain expertise in leadership now, it is actually expertise that you are giving and modeling for others. So they're outward expertise. And I think that's the biggest change for most leaders. So what is Keystone doing to drive this future leadership evolution that is kind of happening all around us? We created a conscious leadership series, and it's a training program that's 3 parts that is built around 3 aspects of leadership. Leading self, which is really focused on our own personal energy. We are seeing leaders with such a deficit of energy, of burnout at a level we've never seen before. And so before we can teach them how to lead others, which is the second part of the series, or how to lead culture, we have to invest in them first. And that's what we love about our clients and the organizations that are working with us, is they see the need to invest in their leaders and then invest in their leaders being better. And that's very different things. And so leading self is the most important step. And I think most leaders need to do a gut check right now to say, how am I the CEO, right? The chief energy officer of my own life, of my own career, and am I showing up in the right way? And then once we have that understood, we know what we need to work on, then we can start looking at how we lead others, which is the second part of our series. And then once we really understand what it takes to lead others in today's world, then we can effectively lead culture, which is the third part in our series. And so we're helping leaders make that evolution because they know they want to be better, but someone needs to invest in them to help show them the path.